Do you know the type of person who always looks almost scary calm? They always seem like they're just chilling or don't care about anything at all. That's what everyone sees. But the truth about them is just like the iceberg principle. The 10% you see on the surface is silence. The other 90% hidden underneath that no one notices, it's a brain screaming from overload. When you think they're just sitting there quietly, they're actually decoding every little frown, every pause in your breathing, and even predicting the worst possible future of a relationship that just started. But listen carefully to this. It's not a condition called overthinking. Psychology calls them deep thinkers. That silence is not a weakness. It's just the surface of a brain scanning the world on a completely different frequency. A superpower, but also an invisible burden. In this video, we're going to decode the mysterious inner world of a deep thinker. Let's find out what's really going on behind those calm eyes, and see if you might have this superpower without even realizing it. A deep thinker's brain does not work the usual way. In psychology, there's a concept called latent inhibition. Simply put, it's your brain's filter for irrelevant information. When you walk into a coffee shop, this filter helps an average person ignore useless details. The low hum of the coffee grinder, the slightly flickering neon light in the corner, or the way the barista tilts a bit when handing over the receipt. A typical person brushes all of that aside to focus on one thing, drinking their coffee. But for a deep thinker, their filter is like full of holes. Or more accurately, it's designed not to miss a single speck of dust. Their level of latent inhibition is low, which means their sensitivity is extremely high. When you talk to them, you think you're just communicating with words. You're wrong. For a deep thinker, your words make up only about 10% of the data they're taking in. What about the other 90%? It's the way you blinked a little faster than usual when you mention someone's name. It's that tiny pause in your breathing. A raised eyebrow is never just a simple facial movement. In their processing system, that raised eyebrow could be a sign of doubt. It could be a trace of judgment. Or it could connect to a memory from 5 years ago, when you raised your eyebrow at the exact moment they shared a secret dream. They read you the way a hacker reads lines of code in the Matrix. Nothing slips through. And that's exactly why they often look so tired. How could they not be when they're carrying the weight of invisible details that the rest of the world happily ignores? Their exhaustion doesn't come from overworked muscles, but from a central nervous system that's running at 200% power all the time. And from taking in too much data, it leads to a kind of tragedy I call the burden of foresight. Most of us live our lives in a straight line, beginning, middle, end. We enjoy the start and leave the future to time. But deep thinkers don't have that luxury. Their biggest obstacle is that they often see the ending the moment things are just beginning. They're like time travelers stuck in the present. Think about starting a new job. A normal person might think, great, higher salary, nice office, friendly coworkers, let's go. But what about a deep thinker? On their first day, they see the boss smile, and instantly their mind starts mapping out a psychological diagram. They notice the hidden power dynamics in the office. They predict that with this business model, burnout will hit around month 8. They might already know why they'll quit, while they're still signing their probation contract. Or let's talk about the most complicated thing of all, love. When a deep thinker falls in love, it's beautiful, but also painful. Because in the same moment they look into someone's eyes and feel the spark of romance, they also see the possibility of heartbreak. They understand too well how fragile human nature is. They know that forever promises often expire after a few years. They can already see how the other person's childhood wounds might clash with their own insecurities in the future. They love you in the present, but they're already grieving an ending that hasn't even happened. Sounds crazy and extremely pessimistic, right? But no, don't call them pessimists. They are hyper-realists, the kind of people who see things as they truly are and often think through the worst-case scenarios ahead of time so they won't be caught off guard. They don't live in a single moment. They live in a moving timeline. Every second of the present carries the shadow of the past and the echo of the future. Seeing the full picture all the time makes it very hard for them to relax and simply enjoy. Because how can you casually eat an apple when you can clearly see the exact process of how it will eventually rot? And maybe seeing the world this way comes with a very familiar side effect for many deep thinkers. Loneliness. But the loneliness of a deep thinker is not the same as the loneliness of someone who has no friends. It's completely different. A deep thinker can stand in the middle of a crowd of 500 people chanting their name, have dozens of unread messages, a packed social schedule, and still feel a cold, bone-deep loneliness. Why? Because their loneliness doesn't come from the absence of people, it comes from the absence of understanding. Imagine it like this. Social relationships are like an ocean. About 95% of people in this world enjoy surfing on the surface. It's fun, fast, full of sunlight and laughter. That's small talk. How's the weather? Where did you buy that shirt? Did you enjoy your trip last week? But deep thinkers? They were born wearing deep-sea diving suits. Heavy, slow, always looking down. They want to go 50 meters below the surface, where it's darker but filled with glowing coral reefs, sunken ships carrying history, and creatures no one has ever seen. And their tragedy? They keep surfacing, calling out to everyone, "Hey, come down here, it's amazing down here. This is where the real world is." But the surfers just wave back, laugh and say, "No thanks, we've got sunshine up here and cocktails in hand. Why would we dive into the mud?" They realize their language is a foreign language to most of the world. You can't talk about generational trauma, the meaning of emptiness, or how fear of death shapes consumer behavior when people just want to talk about what to eat tonight. Small talk isn't just boring to them, it actually drains their physical energy. Pretending to be normal is the most exhausting role they can play. On the other hand, deep conversations are like literal caffeine, the strongest stimulant for them. A 3-hour conversation at 2 a.m., diving into the darkest corners of the human soul with someone on the same wavelength. It gives them a level of satisfaction that no week at a 5-star resort could ever match. They are very selective, not because they're arrogant, but because their system doesn't allow them to waste energy on shallow interactions. They'd rather eat alone, watch a movie alone, or talk to themselves in the mirror than sit at a table full of people pretending to care about conversations that have no soul. But don't romanticize them too quickly. Being a deep thinker isn't always cool like Sherlock Holmes. Most of the time, it's a messy mix of exhaustion and self-inflicted mental pressure. And this is where we have to talk about the real dark side: overthinking and analysis paralysis. That constant mental alertness often turns back on them. Because their brain is wired to search for hidden meaning everywhere, it doesn't let even the smallest things slide. Take something simple: buying a birthday gift for a coworker. A normal person, go to the store, grab a coffee mug, get a card, done. A deep thinker: okay, a coffee mug. But wait, if I give them a mug, will they think I'm implying they're addicted to caffeine? What if they're dealing with anxiety from drinking too much coffee? Am I enabling that by giving this? Also, this mug is made by a company with a history of labor exploitation. If I buy it, am I indirectly supporting capitalist injustice? Maybe I should get a book instead. But what kind? If it's a self-help book, they'll think I see them as a failure. If it's a romance novel, they'll think I'm flirting. Boom. Mind blown yet? 4 hours later, they're still standing in the gift shop, emotionally drained, facing a full-blown existential crisis over a birthday present. That's analysis paralysis. Too much information leads to total inaction. They see so many possible paths for every decision that they can't take a single step. And it doesn't stop with the future. They are masters at torturing themselves with the past. Ever been lying in bed, completely relaxed, about to fall asleep, and suddenly your brain replays in full HD? Something slightly awkward you said back in 2014? Yeah. Welcome to the late night cinema of deep thinkers. They can replay a long gone moment over and over, turning it around, trying to figure out if they were the bad person in that story. Their biggest fear? Being misunderstood. Because their thinking has so many layers, they're extremely afraid that using the wrong words will ruin the subtle meaning they're trying to express. And that leads to a very specific habit: over-explaining. When they text you, it's usually a long paragraph filled with side notes, parentheses, disclaimers, just to make sure you understand 100% of the context and don't misjudge their intentions. It can be exhausting to read, but trust me, it's 100 times more exhausting to write. So what is all that suffering for? In exchange for a kind of superpower that no AI, no machine can truly replicate. It's the ability to connect things that seem completely invisible and unrelated. While most people are stuck inside the maze, staring at the walls and looking for left or right turns, deep thinkers are floating above it, seeing the entire maze at once. They don't just look at things, they see through them. They are architects of new ideas. A deep thinker can walk through a forest, watch how a spider builds its web, and instantly come up with a new organizational structure for their startup. They can listen to a Beethoven symphony and see a graph of stock market trends, because their brain doesn't separate knowledge into isolated boxes. Everything bleeds into each other. Philosophy flows into mathematics. Art blends into economics. Biology shapes literature. It's not a coincidence that many great thinkers, artists, and inventors tend to think in ways very similar to deep thinkers. Albert Einstein spent hours running thought experiments in his mind before writing down equations. Nikola Tesla could design and test entire machines in his imagination before ever touching a blueprint. Minds like this are willing to live with the chaos of constant thought to extract the hidden order underneath the world. They may feel more anxious than others, but because of that, they also see further. And in that paradox, true creativity is born. If you feel your chest tighten a little because you see yourself in all that chaos and exhaustion, then listen to this. What you need right now is not to understand more. Not another explanation, not another self-help book, and definitely not another attempt to fix yourself. Maybe what you really need is a permission slip. A permission slip to surrender. Because the truth is, you don't always have to be the captain controlling every wave in your mind. Sometimes when your thoughts feel messy and loud, it's not because your system is broken. There's nothing wrong with you. It just means you've gone too far, your brain has been running overtime trying to make sense of a world that's simply too complex. So maybe today you don't need to be sharp. You don't need to be alert all the time. You're allowed to be a little unaware. Try to imagine your mind as a room with a storm blowing through it. Instead of running around trying to shut every window or organizing the papers flying everywhere, you're allowed to just sit down in the middle of the floor, close your eyes, and let it be. Let the thoughts run. Let the anxiety scream. But you don't have to touch any of it. You don't have to analyze where the storm came from or what it means. Some days, doing nothing but letting everything pass without forcing a conclusion is the most sacred kind of rest. Don't try to become someone who thinks less, because that's your nature. But allow yourself to think without needing a purpose. Let your mind be an open space, where thoughts come and go like clouds, and you are just the one watching the sky instead of trying to control the wind. So right now, put the weapons down. Stop fighting yourself. Be a little less harsh on who you are. Just allow yourself to be a tired human being. That alone is more than enough. Finally, I want us to shift the way we see these people. We're living in an age that celebrates superficiality. Everything has to be fast. Fast food, fast fashion, 15-second videos, swipe right, swipe left relationships. The world pushes us to react quickly instead of slowing down to think. In that kind of culture, deep thinkers are often labeled as weird, overcomplicating things, or too sensitive. But listen to this. Sensitivity is not a flaw. Deep thinking is not a disorder that needs fixing. It's the only antidote to a world that is slowly losing its humanity. Living deeply is not some intentional choice to seem smarter than others. It's simply a way, and maybe the only way, to love this world more fully. True intelligence is not about how many right answers you have. It's about your ability to hold the complexity of life without forcing it into something simple. It's about seeing the ugly parts and still choosing to search for meaning within them. If you're a deep thinker watching this, I have one request for you. Stop apologizing. Stop apologizing for taking time to respond. Stop apologizing for asking difficult questions. Stop apologizing for not fitting into shallow forms of joy. Stop trying to shrink the universe inside your mind just to fit into society's narrow box. This world is drowning in noise, but starving for depth. It needs people like you. People who don't just glance, but truly see. Who don't just hear, but truly understand. Your silence is helping keep a small piece of balance in this world. If what I just said feels like someone quietly stepped into your mind, then hey, you're not alone. There's a whole tribe of deep-sea divers out there, and you're always welcome here. Leave a comment below and tell me, what's the most exhausting or the most beautiful experience that your deep thinking has brought you? I'll read them all. Thank you for spending your time with me and staying until the very end. Your presence is the reason this kind of content exists. I'm Apex. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so we don't miss any future journeys into the mind. Take care, and I'll see you next time.